The Ring put horror inside the media you invited home. Final Destination put it inside the world you kept moving through. Both of those movies made familiar things feel dangerous. Saw does something different. It puts the horror inside a system, a designed, deliberate, carefully engineered system, and built by someone who is convinced that what he's doing to you is not cruel at all. That is what makes this a special kind of terrifying. The threat in The Ring and Final Destination is indifferent. Death doesn't have an opinion about you, and the curse does not know your name. But Jigsaw does. Jigsaw knows you. He knows your name. He's studied you. He's decided you're failing at something, and he's built a trap to teach you the lesson that he thinks that you need the most. That shift from indifferent threat to deliberate judgment is what Saw added to the millennial horror vocabulary. Hi, I'm Brandy, otherwise known as the Terrorific Lady, and welcome back to Retro Horror School, where we discuss, dissect, and analyze horror from the 1970s through the 2010s, and talk about horror like it matters, because it does. And today, in this third episode of the series, The Horror That Raised Us, we're going to be talking about Saw. If you're new here or you've been here a while and you want a clean entry point, I have a Start Here playlist that shows the roadmap for Retro Horror School and how we approach analyses. The question that I'm working with for this episode is this: what did Saw teach millennials about survival, punishment, and who gets to decide what your life is worth? The Ring made watching feel dangerous. Final Destination made ordinary life feel suspicious. Saw made something else feel dangerous entirely: being seen, assessed, and found wanting by someone who has already decided that they know what you deserve.
I'll tell you where you might be. You might be in the room that you die in.
One of the first things that Saw does is dismantle the traditional horror villain structure. By his own accounting, Jigsaw's own accounting, he has never killed anyone. And the movie takes that claim seriously enough to make it disturbing instead of dismissible. What he does is build rooms and traps, design tests, select his victims based on research, and, for the most part, disappear from the space entirely. What remains in his absence is his voice.
Dr. Gordon, this is your wake-up call.
The tape recorder is one of the most unsettling things that Jigsaw uses, because it makes him feel omnipresent instead of just feeling entirely invisible. His voice gives Adam and Lawrence the instructions that they need, the rules of the game, and tells them exactly what they're being tested for. All the while, the man lies between them on the floor at the same time, apparently unconscious. He is in the room and yet completely absent from it at the same time. The visible voice without a body, it gives Jigsaw a quality that traditional slasher villains do not have. It gives him kind of this construction and a system. The reason that is more disturbing than just a straightforward slasher killer is the implication behind it. A slasher killer, you know what a slasher killer wants from you. He wants you dead. Jigsaw wants you to learn something. He believes with complete conviction that the suffering is meaningful, that pain is the most honest teacher available, and that the people that he has selected has failed so miserably at something in their lives that it's up to him to teach them a lesson, and not gently either. It's not just a slap on the wrist and sending them away. The movie doesn't fully validate that logic, but it doesn't dismiss it either. It lets Jigsaw's framework sit with us long enough for us to follow how someone fully arrives at it, which is what makes it so uncomfortable. A monster you can't understand is frightening. A monster whose reasoning you can follow, even as you reject it, it gets under your skin a little bit differently. The traps in Saw are arguments. And it's not all the same trap, if you notice. Each one is built differently. It makes a statement about the person who is inside that trap. They don't appreciate life in some way, they've been wasting what they have in some way, and they need to earn the right to live. The trap is Jigsaw's verdict, sentence, and curriculum all at once. This structure is what separates Saw from straightforward gore. The violence in this movie is framed as instructional. Pain is the point. Jigsaw believes that suffering is the most direct route to genuine appreciation. So every trap is designed to compel the victim to participate in their own assessment or test. In other words, you're being graded. I would get an F. If Jigsaw decided that I did something like not recycle, I don't know, and he put me in this trap and I had to escape it, I'd get an F. If you were taken by Jigsaw, do you think that you would escape one of his traps? Comment below. I am really curious if you think that you would survive one of his traps. Anyway, the bathroom amplifies this because it is the physical expression of Jigsaw's control. Every object in that room has been placed deliberately. The hacksaw is a mystery until you understand what it's for. The phone connects to the outside world in only one direction. The clues are there. It just requires the players in the game to follow Jigsaw's logic to find them. Adam and Lawrence are trying to find the exit that Jigsaw decided to allow if they've earned it.
Find the path through the razor wire to the door, but hurry.
Jigsaw insists that his victims have a choice. This is central to how he distinguishes himself from the average, like say, slasher killer. He provides options, rules, time limits, and instructions. He frames the game as something that victims that they can win at if they want it badly enough. And technically, one of his victims survives, which is proof to him that, hey, my whole system works, so I'm going to keep doing it. The movie exposes that framing as a big fat lie. Adam's key is at the bottom of a bathtub that drains the moment he decides to wake up. So Adam has lost the game before he's even started. Lawrence, after he works through all the clues, finds a gun and he is told to kill Adam at 6 o'clock. A choice that forces him to weigh his survival against another person's life, all the while his family is being held hostage by someone he doesn't know for reasons he is only beginning to understand. The rules are real and the playing field has already been decided. Choosing freely means having access to real information, options, and time to think. Adam and Lawrence have a simulation of choice inside a system that has already determined every possible outcome. The gap between the appearance of agency and the realities of a rigged game is where the movie's most uncomfortable idea lives. Jigsaw believes the choice is real, and he's not lying when he says that people have options. He's just defined choice as whatever is possible inside the confines of the room or the trap that he's built. That redefinition, that wide narrowing of what agency means is more disturbing than if he admitted, hey, I'm going around offing people. At least then the cruelty would be honest. Saw is structured around observation. And it's almost like a circle in a way. Jigsaw watches his victims, Zepp watches Lawrence's family, the camera watches Adam and Lawrence, and we all watch it. Which means that by the time the movie ends, we have been folded into the same voyeuristic position as the man that is lying on the floor in the bathroom. That layering of watchers is intentional because a game, it requires both players and an audience. Part of what makes Jigsaw's system function is that everything is recorded, observed, and evaluated. The suffering is being monitored and judged in real time, which is its own kind of horror. There's a difference between experiencing pain alone and experiencing pain when someone is watching, just kind of taking notes, whether it's written or mental, taking notes on what you experiencing that pain says about you. Bah. The twist in this movie earns its place because of all this. When John Kramer finally stands up from the bathroom floor, it confirms everything the movie has been arguing about: control and surveillance. He was there the entire time. Every moment of fear, every desperate decision, every small reveal, he was there for all of it, regardless of whether he was awake or not. The game was never out of his hands, and that reframes the bathroom retroactively. It was an observation chamber, and the observer never left.
And I have no greater responsibility than to protect our people, our freedom, and our way of life.
By 2004, when Saw came out, the post 9/11 surveillance infrastructure was already in place and expanding. The NSA's warrantless wiretapping program, which was later exposed by the New York Times, was already running. The message from the government was explicit: being watched, well, it's for your own protection. If you got nothing to hide, then you got nothing to fear. Observation equals safety in their eyes. Reality television had been building toward this too. Survivor made competitive suffering into mainstream entertainment starting in the year 2000, and the format was simple and brutal. People were placed in difficult situations, observed constantly, and judged by the other contestants on the show that voted who they felt deserved to stay. Crime procedurals dominated primetime, showing week after week that the system could assess you, categorize you, and determine your guilt with confidence and speed, and wrap it all up in a 60-minute show. The cultural air was just full of the idea that being watched was just a part of everyday life, that being tested was fair, and if you failed, well, you probably had it coming. Saw plugged directly into that anxiety and turned it into a horror movie. Jigsaw is the logical extension of a culture that already decided that some people deserved what happened to them. He just made the judgment process visible and gave it a room, or a trap, and a countdown clock. The millennial connection runs deep here. The generation that saw this movie way too young or grew up with this movie was the first generation that became very aware that mistakes could be permanent. The internet was keeping score. Being seen the wrong way could define you, sometimes for life, that there was always someone somewhere deciding whether you were living correctly. Jigsaw made that ambient anxiety into a monster with a philosophy. And the jokes that followed,
I want to play a game.
those memes where Jigsaw is punishing people for littering, for instance. You laugh at Jigsaw just doing these extreme reactions to these seemingly minor things because the underlying premise that someone out there is deciding whether your behavior is good enough is already familiar. So what did Saw teach millennials? It taught us that horror didn't need to hide inside a monster, a screen, or an accident. It could exist entirely inside a system of judgment, one where survival was treated as proof, pain was treated as instruction, and someone else got to decide what your life was worth. The Ring made us afraid of what we watched. Final Destination made us afraid of the world that we moved through. Saw made us afraid of being tested, of the possibility that someone, somewhere, has decided whether we deserve what we have or not. That fear didn't go away when the credits rolled. If you want more horror analysis that goes beyond just plot recap, make sure that you're subscribed if you're not already, and do all the liking, the sharing, the hitting the bell, and consider joining as a YouTube member if you haven't already. Any way you choose to support helps the channel greatly. Next week, we're taking a pause on the horror that raised us, and you'll be seeing a brand new episode of Retro Horror School Talks, which is my podcast that you can see right here on this YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that and be sure to check out the past episodes of my podcast. As always, thank you so much for being here. And class is dismissed, but I'll see you next time.